Hello, Christian Ministry students. Today we're going to talk about mental balance as we're approaching this material in the balance book. We'll see how far we go. I only think we're going to get to cover mental, and then in our class we'll be covering spiritual and relational and physical balance. But would you agree that every action that you do is preceded by a thought? Every action that you do is preceded by a thought, and so if we want to get to the heart of who we are and becoming productive persons, that we have to look at our own thinking and think about our thinking. And we're all busy people. We all work hard. But what's happened to us in the early 21st century is we all may be working even too hard, at least not working smart. There's a study for the time at University of Maryland, and they said we're working about 160 hours more a year than people were, say, around 1970. 160 hours a year is another month of work. It's a 13th month of work. And the main motivation seems primarily just to pay our taxes and keep up with the Joneses and things of that nature. The tax bite especially is significant. So we're working hard, but what we want to do is organize our minds in a way that we work smart. There's a fellow named Ivy Lee, L-E-E, who was a management consultant way back before they called him that in the 20s, and he tried to get an appointment with a guy named Charles Schwab. And in that appointment, Ivy Lee asked Charles Schwab to list all the things that he had to do for that day, and then prioritize them in order, and then make sure for that day ended that he at least did the most important thing on the list. And Charles Schwab said that was the best advice he'd ever been given, to keep the main thing the main thing. And he paid Ivy Lee, I think, $25,000, which was an astronomical sum back then. It'd be like somebody giving someone $500,000 today for their advice. And we have to work these things out in a way that fits with us. It tends to take its toll over time when we don't work smart. I compare it to like if you're vacuuming and you keep stretching the cord, and finally the cord comes out of the socket and the power goes out. A lot of us are just falling out and losing our energy simply because we're unable to stretch ourselves anymore. And most of us are not particularly good at looking at ourselves. That's what I'm actually going to ask you to do, to step outside your mind. Fritz Perls would say that we have poor perceptual contact with ourselves. In other words, we don't see ourselves very well. Adler referred to this as our private logic. It's our unique way of thinking on the world. For example, we may be thinking we're good Christian persons, and then we're doing behaviors that are not. There's a famous study that was done at Princeton Theological Seminary, as reported in Human Behavior magazine. And this is a small seminary that puts out about 30 or so ministers out of their Master of Divinity program, and they become clergy around the country each year. But they were wondering, are they really ministers? Are they really doing those kinds of things? We know they know Hebrew and Greek and church history and theology, but are they ministering and reaching out to people? And so they set up an experiment on the campus, and I've been on the Princeton campus, and they had each senior in this graduate program to come, and they had to deliver a sermon on the Good Samaritan. Now, you know the story of the Good Samaritan in the Bible, where there's a wounded man on the side of the road, and people walk by and don't help him until the Good Samaritan does. So they're to deliver a sermon, and as they came to the video center to do that sermon on video as part of their senior project, they had hired an actor. The school had hired an actor to come approaching them and to fall down and have a heart attack, act as if he was having a heart attack right in front of them. Now, here was a senior going to go to deliver a sermon on what? On the Good Samaritan. And it's hard to believe this, 60% of these seniors who were going to become clergy around the country the next year walked over the body of the wounded man in the road so they could deliver a message on the Good Samaritan. Video cameras confirmed it. It's hard to believe that we can convince ourselves we're doing okay when we're really not. So another way of referring to looking at our thinking is called Janusian thinking, like Janus, the Greek god from which we get January. That was the god of coming and going. That's how we got, January. And Janusian thinking means you look at your comings and goings. How do you act? How do you arrive at places, your habitual practices? For example, eating. Observe your eating. You eat 3 times a day. How do you eat? Do some of you, say, eat a little bit of everything on your plate all at once, and you tend to be multitaskers? Or do you just tend to eat one item at a time and you finish it and then you go to the next, and you tend to be more focused? Or maybe observe yourself carrying items, like from you've gone to Walmart. Do some of you just wrap all the bags on your arms and you try to carry everything at once? Or do you go ahead and make 2 or 3 trips? That says a lot about the way you organize yourself in your mind. And I'm going to ask you on your own to go ahead and do one of the handouts. It's the Type A, Type B handouts. And you'll learn something about yourself. It's two personality types. This study came from cardiology, and they found that a lot of persons who died of heart attacks really didn't have heart disease. They were just noting a personality type that led towards illness. And it was the Type A driven sorts of persons, whereas Type Bs are persons who kind of take their time a little more slowly, savor the moment, enjoy things. Type As tend to get a lot done and then they burn out. Type Bs take a little longer to get there. Ideally, you want to become an AB and kind of come to that middle place. I'm a Type A, and I married a Type B in God's grace, and so I'm more of an AB now. Just enough drive to get where I want to be, but also a B in me so that I will savor the moment and enjoy the ride. So you'll want to do that particular handout and find out that detail about yourselves. Also, in the Balance book, Chapter 5, we talk about saving time. I'd like you to think about how you try to save time. All of us do this. You know, the shortcuts to get to the Taco Bell, or you eat meals in the car. I've done all these things. Maybe put your head out the window to try to dry your hair as you're going to an event. Maybe you text and drive. You shouldn't do that, but you're doing that to try to save time. What do you do to save time in your life? Now, the truth is, all of us only have so much time, and we want to use it well. We want to use that time well. In your book, there's a description of looking at your life as if you lived 70 years, and what time would it be? It's done by Leslie Weatherhead. For example, if you took a normal day between 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., and you calculated a 70-year life within that, if you're around 20 years old right now, in which most of you are, you're pretty close to noon hour. You're at noontime in your life. You've got a lot of living left by the grace of God, but time's moving on and you want to use it well. And when you think about it like a day, it doesn't seem like time is, forever. And it's not. In fact, it's good to have a time perspective. I've heard it put this way. When you're 20, you worry what everybody thinks about you. And when you're 40, you don't care what anybody thinks about you. And when you reach 60, you realize nobody was concerned about you or thinking about you. I decided when I was 20 to stop worrying what people thought about me and go ahead and map out my own course by the grace of God, and really the attitude of a 60-year-old, and just say, this is my life, these are my choices, and I'm going to do it in a way that I think is following God's will for my life and brings me satisfaction. And that's what I would wish for you, that your decisions are made on God's will and what's best for you and your life. So let's think about some mental habits that people struggle with and try to change. Maybe you're easily discouraged. Maybe you're shy. Perhaps you struggle with discipline in your life, or you're pessimistic. You can change these behaviors. It really is possible, and actually young adulthood is the time to do it. Maybe you can memorize scriptures. I was thinking right now of an 18-year-old freshman who came to see me at Lindsey Wilson, and he was discouraged because at 18 years of age he'd never asked a girl out on a date. And he was an okay-looking guy, nothing wrong with him. Why do you think he didn't ask a girl out? Oh, that she might exercise her constitutional right to just say no. And so I said, well, let's try it. Let's give it a try and see what happens. Let's get into your thinking process. Let's not be discouraged. So he asked a girl out and she turned him down. And that hurt. So I said, we met again. Well, why don't you ask another girl out? There's another one or two you're interested in, right? And he said yes. So he asked a second girl out and she turned him down. So now he's really discouraged. Like maybe I need to become celibate or a monk or something. Said, let's try it one more time. And he asked a third girl out. She said yes. and she became his girlfriend. And his life was infinitely better because he changed the way he thought, and he went ahead and acted upon it. It really is possible to do this. A skill you want to learn. You've heard the famous saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach a man to fish, he'll sit in a boat and drink beer all the day. I don't think that's exactly right, but you get the idea. You can learn a skill. You can change your thinking. You can organize your time better. You can do things that will get you to the places that you want to be in life. When I was 18 years of age, I majored in Friends and Fun and Friday nights, and I wasn't happy with myself at the end of my freshman year. I was making some money. I was actually working 40 hours a week at a job at a gas station from 11 at night till 7 in the morning, so the one thing I wasn't doing was sleeping. But I believed in goal setting, and I sat down in my folks' basement during the spring break of my freshman year. And I thought about where I'd been. You know, I had done well in high school. I'd been an honor student, but my start to college wasn't that great. And I thought, I want to do better than this. And so I picked an age that I thought would be ancient and way out there. When you're 18, 30 seems old. And so I picked age 30 and wrote down some goals for my life. And then I forgot about the exercise, or so I thought I had. 15 years later, I'm 33 years of age, and I come back, and my folks were moving out of one house that I'd grown up in, and they were building another house on the same property. And my mother had saved all these drawings that Terry had done and report cards and different things. And so she presented me with this box, and there was that sheet of paper that I'd written out in my 18-year-old handwriting, goals I wanted to achieve when I'd become 30. And one of my goals was I wanted to become Dr. Swan. And remember, I had kind of an inauspicious start as a freshman. I had a C+ average as a freshman. And I wanted to be Dr. Swan by the time I was 30. You know how old I was when I walked down that aisle at Vanderbilt? I was 29 years, 11 months, and 1 week old. I think subconsciously it had guided me towards where I wanted to be in life and what I wanted to happen. And at 33 years of age, I was a dean of a college and making a mark and a difference. And it's because way back in young adulthood, I set some goals for myself that I didn't save. I didn't have them posted anywhere in a mirror or at my desk. They just were down deep inside of me, and it led me mentally to where I wanted to be in life. And the same can be true for you. And I'm praying that you'll have good mental balance and that you yourself will make some good and better decisions as you read through the balance book. Now, in the next few days, you're going to be finishing the balance book. You'll be going into physical balance. You'll be talking about relational balance. You'll be thinking about spiritual balance, and you'll be doing a paper on it. And so in class, we'll be talking about some of that. But if you read the book cover to cover, and it's not a lengthy book, I think you're going to have some good insights about yourself and eventually a good paper that you'll be turning in. Thank you for this time during this video, and this concludes the video for this module.